QRS. Here we go. Alright. Alright. As you can see, this don't look too bad right here, but it could be enhanced just a little bit. For example, the shoulders are really bright, and you can't really tell the difference between some of these lines between the shirt and the shoulder. So you can turn the brightness down just a little bit and turn the contrast up, and see how the color already becomes so much richer and the image becomes so much richer. Now let's reset it back to default and take a good look at it now, and let's reset it back to default. See how it kind of looks just and it'll go back to the way we just had it. And remember, it's kind of hard to explain, but there seems to be a relationship between brightness and contrast. For example, I'm not sure how well this will show up in the end video, but if I just click right twice on the contrast, which brings it up to 20, because each click is 10 whatever units, and a lot of the similar colors have been merged into one, and it looks kind of shitty actually. There's an effect, there's a name for that type of effect, and it's actually in the filters as an effect you can use to do with stuff. Anyway, it looks like crap, but if you actually turn the brightness down, it will soften that out just a little bit. So depending on what you're trying to do with brightness and contrast, if you adjust them opposite a certain amount, it actually winds up evening out and improving the image. But if you adjust them unevenly, it winds up looking like crap. Another one is, with the color menu, is there's invert, which all of us should be familiar with. It's making a negative of the image. But then there's value invert, and that's actually quite distinct from invert. Invert will make an exact negative of the image, which a lot of times looks really good, at least in my opinion. And then value invert will actually invert the values of the image. For example, this turned it back into a positive, but because of the color thresholds, which I'm not even good enough to fix all of this little extra crap, turn it back into the original, but it's like the girl's in a black light. But doing it without that, from the original, as you can see, it's quite distinct from inverting the colors altogether. The value invert actually, I guess, you know what, I'm not even going to try to explain it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's different than invert. And one last thing I'll point out is there's two options here. Where'd the other one go? Colorize here at the top, I don't use that, but colorify down here at the bottom is kind of neat. If you're trying to make like a poster looking image, see if I can get it big enough for you to see here. Not really. Probably isn't even going to show up for you. Alright, anyway, you can set all of the white and white shades, or gray rather, to varying shades of gray, or varying shades of white you can set to varying shades of another color. For example, this would be grayscale, and that looks kind of slick, but then you could adjust it to pink scale or purple scale, whatever that is, and then blue scale, light blue scale, that one doesn't look too bad, green scale, red scale, and I use this kind of often too. But, and that's a nice little tool. And again, it's not colorize at the top, it's colorify at the bottom. I don't really understand what the hell this one does. I've worked with it before and it really didn't do much. I mean, it looks like it does something, but I can't really tell how it works. Hey, that doesn't look bad. Alright, let's see, colors. Desaturate, takes all colors out, converts it to grayscale. Let's see. Posturize, I think that's the effect that I was telling you a moment ago when similar colors are merged into the same color. And I don't use that at all. There's other options in here. Play with them. I'm not going to go through them. Levels and curves, that's kind of beyond even what I use it and need an image manipulation tool for. The tools menu right here is the same thing as your tools palette right here. Filters I do use most oftenly the Gaussian blur. What Gaussian blur is, it's like the blur tool over here. Oh, I meant to cover the smudge tool too real quick. Gaussian blur is like the blur tool, but the blur tool, it's kind of like you move your hand and that's what gets blurred. With Gaussian blur, whatever the selection is, and if there's no selection, it's the entire image or layer that you're currently working with. And you can set how much you want it to be blurred, how many pixels you want it to blur. And you can set from 0 to probably infinity. I've never tried to see how far up it goes. But anyway, it comes in handy when creating effects, especially text effects, because it beats sitting there scribbling with the mouse all day trying to get an effect. And then there's another type of blur that people use to create brushed metal image and a brushed metal effect. That is, we'll actually go over here to cover that. Here, let's just delete all of our layers. We don't need this image anymore. If there's no layers, then whatever you do applies to the image. But if there's one layer or more, then whatever you do applies to the layer you have currently selected. Always remember that. Alright. Let's now for a brush metal effect, I'll just quickly show you how to do it so I can show you the purpose of this other one. You got you could take a color, for example. More often they use like a bluish gray, but I think we can get by with a gray. Alright, so you get a gray, and you go to filters, go to distorts, I believe it was distort. Noise, RGB noise. And you probably can't see this. Let me see if I can, well, again, you probably can't see this too well, but there's a bunch of specks on there. It took a smooth gray, a perfect gray, and put like a bunch of different specks of different stuff on there. And then you can go to filters, blur, motion blur, and you could tell it to go 90 degrees, or would it be 45 to go directly left and right? You never can really tell. And length, yeah, 45 is diagonal, so it would have to be 90. Alright, and then length will determine how long the blur goes. But you click OK. Now when you're done, you got something that represents brushed metal. And this isn't a very good representation of brushed metal, but you get the point. You play with it a little more, you can get something that really looks like metal. And then you can turn around and add a gradient to it. See, that's why I love keyboard shortcuts. I can't ever find the tool by looking at the toolbox, but I remember the letters and I can just hit them. And go over here and select white. And make sure in your tool options it's still selected as foreground to transparent, and then you can kind of give the effect of shiny metal or something like that. I don't know. You get the point though. And you can also adjust how strong the color is that goes into it. For example, I mean, that's all wrong direction. That's all fine and dandy, but if I don't want that strong of a gradient on it, you can adjust the opacity of the color and bring it down to, we'll say 40. And as you can see, it's quite a big difference. It just adds a really light gradient to it, which I actually use 40 and 60 a lot because you can do multiple gradients without setting the actual solid color on there. That way you can still see the background through it, and you can adjust multiple gradients throughout and still see the background through it. That way it doesn't look like somebody painted on top of your metal. It looks like there's actually a glow on top of it. Other thing with layers is, let's go to open recent. Let's open this chick up again. We'll go ahead and close this.